Oh man, did I miss me some Supernatural, and I'm gonna really miss it when it's gone. Supernatural, Season 15, Episode 14, Last Holiday. This is the first episode back after they had to shut down most of the way through their final season because of the whole situation we have going on worldwide right now, and I was anxiously awaiting its return. It was one of the big depressive moments that I have come across when I found out that it was ending after this season. I understand it's been dragging on for a very long time. 15 years is a very long time for any kind of episodic television, especially one with the kind of escalation that this show runs into. And this is a show that probably had its projected endpoint somewhere around season 4. If I were going to guess, I think maybe season 5, we could stretch it. Season 5 actually kind of makes sense based on where the story was at the time. That was the apocalypse. And if you have the final battle between Michael and Lucifer, and that's the thing you seemed like you were building up to, the actual apocalypse, how do you beat the actual apocalypse? Well, they managed to continue the story past the apocalypse, past the end of days. And in this last season, we're fighting God himself. It is kind of been a wild ride on this show, and I will definitely do some kind of retrospective. I have all the plans in the world to do some pieces on Supernatural because it's a show that's meant a lot to me over the years, and it's a show that I absolutely love. But let's get into some actual content talking about the episode itself. Last Holiday was, like I said, the first episode back after a long break, and if you really look back on it, it wasn't the most impactful episode from a plot perspective. And as the episode started and got through that like cold open kind of phase and the story started to unfold, I started looking at it and go, this doesn't seem like an episode that should be 7 episodes from that final series finale, because it doesn't seem like it's going to have the most impact. It may, you never know, but after all was said and done, it seemed like a fairly self-contained episode. Of course, there's character moments. There's always character moments in Supernatural. Whatever plot is going on, the real moments and the real impactful parts of Supernatural is always the moments between the brothers, and now between Jack and sometimes between Cass. There was some of that in this episode. There was some character building, and there was some hashing out of some of the threads that were going on between the characters in the episode. And that, of course, is impactful, but a major detractor that a lot of people have with Supernatural is that a lot of these moments have been tread over before. The brothers keep having to have these same kind of things happen to them over and over again because the series has gone on so long. And that's understandable, because having gone on for so long, there's only so much character motivation that you can kind of explore. Whether it's Sam having demon blood, or it's Dean dealing with the mark of Cain, or it's Cass dealing with taking in a lot of souls and essentially becoming God and kind of going wrong on that, or it's Jack with his Nephilim powers. There's always some kind of inner conflict within the group, within one of the members of the group that the group is having to deal with. And a lot of it is very similar. A lot of the messages of Supernatural are kind of putting the past behind you, moving on, and understanding what you're living for and who you're protecting. And that kind of gets tread on a lot in the show, over and over again. But I don't think it's a message that's necessarily a bad message. And this episode is no different. By the time you end with this episode, you're basically kind of where you started, with a little bit of character growth. From that perspective, I can look at it as we're getting close to the end. We need to be having more impactful episodes. But I also really like these characters, and having episodes where you just get to kind of hang out with the characters. And I'll go into a little bit more specifics about the episode. This is going to be spoilery, so if you guys want my final thoughts on the episode, it was a fun episode, self-contained, not particularly impactful to the plot, but fun. There was some fun moments that were funny, and I will always take those moments. Supernatural can make me laugh. In almost any episode, there's something in there that's going to make me laugh. Moving on to that, going into spoilers, the whole centerpiece of this episode was they were having some issues in the bunker, the Men of Lander's bunker, and they go down to try and fix it, and they end up releasing a wood nymph. And this wood nymph is somebody that used to work for and protect the Men of Letters back in the day. When the Men of Letters, and this was a nice callback from a long time ago, were killed by Abaddon, they never returned. And this wood nymph by the name of Mrs. Butters ended up putting herself into standby, and she assumed it would be for a short period of time until the Men of Letters came back and she would be able to come back out and take care of them. She was very much like a Mary Poppins kind of figure. Like, they were all bachelors and they didn't take care of themselves. They didn't home cook meals. They didn't wash their clothes properly. They didn't do all things, things, especially men of the 50s. And she took care of them. She seemed to revel in that position, taking care of the Men of Letters. And now the only Men of Letters that are left are Sam and Dean all these years later. And she starts taking care of them. She starts making meals for them. They start celebrating holidays. They realize that the bunker this whole time has only been in standby mode, so it's not functioning using her magic, which is what made the bunker really helpful to the Men of Letters. This was never mentioned before. They've dealt a lot with the Men of Letters. They've dealt with the British Men of Letters. This has been a thing that could have come up in the past. And the reason why it doesn't come up in the past is it really doesn't end up meeting a lot by the end of the episode. So I guess it doesn't matter. It was just kind of a fun episode that doesn't really mean anything in the long run. But so this whole plot is going on. They're celebrating all these holidays. They realize that they have a monster radar that runs, I guess, off of her magic, and they can just know the address of where there's a vampire den or something like that. So they go out and they hunt some vampires using the radar. They kill them really quick. They come back. She's decorated for Christmas. And there's a montage ensues of them celebrating different holidays and things. They don't really say how long this has gone on, but I got the impression from what she was saying is that she felt like they had not been celebrating holidays for a long time, so she was just going to rapid fire hit them all with holidays. Meanwhile, Jack right now is dealing with getting his soul back, and he feels really guilty for killing Mary. At the time, not having his soul and it not being as impactful as it was, he's now having to deal with all those complex emotions all at once. Mrs. Butters sort of coaxes him out. He's kind of just sitting in his room, not really talking to Sam or Dean because he's trying to deal with these complex emotions and the pressure of being the one who's supposed to defeat God. He's been essentially his body's getting stronger, his powers, his Nephilim powers are getting stronger, and he's the one who's supposed to be the linchpin in the final plan to take down God, and he's just having trouble dealing with all of it. Well, he gets coaxed out, and the first time we see Mrs. Butters actually physically lay eyes on Jack, there's a reaction there, and you kind of, at that moment, you realize something. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. She says, "What are you?" That's the first thing she says to Jack. He doesn't really answer, but there is this sense that this is where it's going to go bad. We know at some point something's going to happen. And as we see them being happy, she's a mother figure that Sam and Dean haven't had for a while, and they're really happy, especially Dean. You can always see that Dean latches onto that mother figure a lot stronger than Sam does. That's just kind of something he's always had in his character. And you can see he's really reveling it. There's a scene where he's in a long night shirt and a nightcap, and it's really funny. And he's just really reveling in this family atmosphere that he has. Jack starts to find out some things about Mrs. Butters, about her essentially she used to be a Nazi, or from a lab, and that was run by the Nazis, and the Men of Letters essentially not sort of rescued her, but captured her from this lab and they essentially tortured her to protect them, like to work for the Men of Letters. And they taught her about how pain is a good way to convince people of things. And Jack finds out about just how violent and how powerful she can be. And he goes to try and like bring that out, but she was aware of it. He goes to confront her, and she was fully aware. She wanted him to find out, and she kind of wanted to test him, lure him into a situation where she could slap those enchanted cuffs on him, suppress his power. Turns out that she had been feeding him these smoothies the entire time that was going to suppress his power, something that she learned from the Men of Letters. And she plans on killing him to protect Sam and Dean. She, of course, goes to Sam and Dean, and they, in turn, say no, they don't want to kill Jack. So Dean gets locked into the, that interrogation room with the devil's trap in the floor. And, of course, it was going to end up like this. So Mrs. Butters kind of starts to torture Sam, and by the time we wrap up, we realize that Mrs. Butters just wanted to go home this whole time. She wanted to go back to the woods. She's a wood nymph. She wanted to live in the forest. And she was kind of brainwashed and tortured into helping the Men of Letters. And without having to kill her, I always like the episodes where they don't have to kill the monster in the long run. They talk to her and they get her to see the error of her ways, because Jack is the only way to save the world right now. And they explain that to her, and she understands that that's the best thing for them. And she understands that she wasn't really working for the Men of Letters. She was forced to be there. She was like their prisoner. And it ends on some good character moments. The bunker without Mrs. Butters, of course, is going to go back into standby mode. So they don't get any new technology. They don't get the new monster radar, all the fancy stuff. And we're kind of set back where we started the episode. Mrs. Butters goes off to be back in the forest. She's a wood nymph. That's where she belongs. We don't know if she'll pop up. I mean, there's only 6 episodes left after this. She may not. I honestly don't think she will. I don't think this episode will really have any impact in the long run. But it was fun while it lasted. It ends, the final scene is Dean making a birthday cake for Jack, saying they need to slow down. They're always busy. They're always focusing on one crisis after another. But if Mrs. Butters taught them anything, it's they have to savor those moments as a family. And that's really where this episode had some impact. The episode hit it when Jack and Dean got a chance to talk, when they were trapped in the room by Mrs. Butters. And Dean got to hash out with Jack, because Jack thought that they saw him as a monster, that they were scared of him. And he brought that to Dean's attention, and Dean did get to say, I'm mad at you for what you did. I was really angry with you, and I might still be angry at you, but I'm trying. This is a big thing. This is all I can do, but I'm not going to let her kill you. And that's really where this show always comes down to. It's protecting those you care about, those that are in your family, and putting that bond above everything else. Nobody outside of that family is going to break that family up. And despite how much the people inside of the family try, they're not going to break the family up either. And as much as you might have plot irrelevant episodes, it always comes down to that core. And that's really at the root of why I love Supernatural. So after we've talked about spoilers and everything, kind of gone into detail on this episode, what did I think of it? It was a fun episode. I enjoyed it. I missed Supernatural, and it makes me realize how much I'm going to miss it when it's gone. I'm going to be covering this season as it goes along, sharing my thoughts, and I do plan on doing some kind of retrospective, like I said, towards the end once Supernatural is done, because it's a show that means a lot to me. If you like what you're seeing on the channel, hit that like button. Leave a comment down below. Are you a Supernatural fan from way back? Are you just tuning in? Are you happy it's over? Are you sad that it's over? Let me know. Do you want to see more Supernatural content? I'm always interested to know what you guys think. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know what's up. And I'll catch you in the next episode, everybody.